can't stop. Fuck around, make my 40 pop. No popcorn, I pop pistols, reaming my body.
Alright guys, Boruto episode 219 review. This episode right here was pretty much what we all expected, but there was still some very big disclusions, some things that weren't necessarily added into this episode, and I definitely do want to talk about that. But for the overall thing, I mean, of course, Boruto and everybody else basically come back from the other dimension. This right here was pretty much a struggle middle because Boruto at first didn't really know how to use the karma to actually get back to this dimension, which is going to be a very big thing throughout the next couple of episodes, and which has already been a very big theme in regards to Boruto's karma seal. Boruto and Kawaki, well, not necessarily Kawaki now, have been getting a lot of abilities that they just don't necessarily know exactly how to use. For example, we never really found out exactly how Boruto learned how to activate the karma seal. We've never really learned how Boruto learned how to absorb chakra. These are things that literally just happen. So of course this thing right here, also time-space travel, opening up portals, just happened. So of course that happens, and of course everybody's back home, and of course the first thing that they had to do was actually rush into the hospital and actually analyze exactly what happened. Now I know a lot of people are kind of confused about exactly how Naruto and Sasuke were actually going to be nerfed. Some people are saying that there might be a possible chance that, hey, Sasuke's Rinnegan isn't necessarily completely destroyed, mainly because they didn't necessarily say it was completely destroyed, things like that. But in this episode they pretty much shut all those rumors up and basically said that Sasuke lost that power. Now they didn't necessarily say blatantly like, hey, the Rinnegan got destroyed, but they basically said that Sasuke lost the power. Now in my personal opinion, that could possibly mean that they're leaving a door open for it to possibly come back in the future, but as of right now, this is just what I personally think. You guys should not be looking out for the Rinnegan to come back anytime soon. That right there is just my personal opinion. Now another thing is going to be Naruto with Karma. There is also a difference in this particular episode right here. In the last episode, Karma basically says that he'd lose superhuman power, superhuman strength, something along the lines of that. But in this episode right here, Sakura basically said that Naruto lost superhuman chakra. I think one of the things that the Naruto and Boruto are trying to do as of right now is trying to let people understand that Naruto and Sasuke are still legitimate people in regards to actual ninjas. Like this right here doesn't necessarily bump them back down to like Naruto when he's fighting against Pain, or Sasuke when he just earned the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, but now he only has one of the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingans. No, Sasuke, even without the Mangekyo Sharingans and all the other things that Sasuke doesn't have, would still be number 2 behind Naruto as being the strongest 2 characters on the planet. Good guys, by the way, because obviously we did find out about Code. I'll get into that later, but regardless, I think one of the things that they have to do, and they, of course, they did a very good job of starting that in this episode, is just establishing how strong they really still are. But regardless, I hinted about just a couple of seconds ago, they actually talked about Code as being a very strong character that they have to worry about. In fact, they actually introduced a multiple of these cyborgs that have actually greatly surpassed Jigen. Now of course I'm pretty sure you guys understand Jigen himself was extremely powerful. He beat Naruto and Sasuke before they were nerfed, so because of that we have to assume that all of these cyborgs right now, without the limiter, speaking of Code, would be able to easily watch Naruto and Sasuke, and possibly would be able to easily watch Naruto, Sasuke, Boruto, and everybody else. And we also did get an interesting flash forward to Code in this particular episode right here, and in that scene was the first time that we got to see the white karma seal. This right here is something completely brand new, something that we have never really seen before when this is actually coming on the Boruto manga. In fact, there is a lot of theories circling around the fact that Code may actually have a karma seal, and that Code may have actually been a secret vessel for Isshiki Otsutsuki. And it turns out that it was actually true. I remember making a video theory about this literally like 3 days before the actual manga came out, and it turned out to actually be right, which is very interesting. But regardless, we finally get to see exactly what it is now. It turns out that 1, it survived Isshiki Otsutsuki actually being killed, and 2, it doesn't necessarily serve as a resurrection tool, it only serves as power. So I'm guessing everything that Boruto and Kawaki can do with their karma seals respectively, Code can also do, but he doesn't necessarily actually turn into an Otsutsuki member, which is arguably even a better thing, something that Kawaki would probably want right now. But in that flash scene to Code actually did see Isshiki Otsutsuki pop out from his karma seal and actually give him a message, basically told Code that he actually died and now he wants Code to actually go on with his will. This right here is going to be very interesting, man, because in the Boruto manga there's something completely different about that. There is something introduced called an Otsutsuki god. I made a video about that. I don't necessarily want to cause too much spoilers, because here's the thing, I personally believe that this right here is going to be animated. it's just not going to be animated right now. I think eventually, possibly after we get past the next arc, when Code actually divulges his overall plan, I believe that we're going to get a flashback to that particular moment and then see Isshiki Otsutsuki tell Code exactly what he wanted him to do. We've seen this happen multiple times before in the Naruto series. I wouldn't be too surprised if this right here actually happens again. Of course, that scene right there is going to be very, and I mean very, very important, not only for the sake of Code and Isshiki Otsutsuki, but also for the Jogan as well. And I'll get into that later. I'm probably going to make a full video just dissecting exactly why we didn't necessarily see the Otsutsuki God scene, and of course what we can possibly expect and when we can possibly expect it in the actual Boruto anime. But regardless, other than that, this episode was pretty much tame. It was essentially them coming back from a very important mission, a very important battle, and everything that we could have possibly assumed would happen pretty much happened. One of the things though that was very interesting is that they did actually confirm that Boruto and Kawaki were in fact 80% Otsutsuki, and of course because of that they have to actually move accordingly to that fact. Kawaki is down, I wouldn't necessarily say just wandering around mainly because of course Kawaki isn't necessarily a full-blown shinobi yet. I'm pretty sure he's going to be trained to become a full-blown shinobi, and I'm pretty sure everybody here really hopes that Kawaki would possibly be allowed into the actual Chunin exam. I personally think it would probably make the most sense mainly because it probably actually ingratiate himself with a lot of the other ninjas at his level. But not only that, I do want to talk about Boruto and rest of Team 7. They're pretty much banned from going on missions mainly because they're afraid of Boruto losing a lot of chakra, and of course Shiki popping back up. This right here is a very smart decision on Shikamaru's part. I really do want to see exactly how this right here impacts the Chunin exam mainly because from what we see, it looks like Boruto is also going to be participating in the Chunin exam, so it's going to be very interesting. But not only that, there's also some shipping wars going around on Twitter right now. Sada and Boruto, they had a scene when Boruto came back, but also the Sumire people are like, hey, Sumire actually openly expressed worry for Boruto, and people are saying that it's obvious that Boruto is going to end up with Sumire. Honestly, I just kind of do this stuff for fun because I like to see people get triggered on Twitter, but I personally believe as of right now, man, it's just leaning towards Sada and Kawaki and Boruto and Sumire. That's just me. I mean, we obviously understood back in Naruto that Naruto and Sakura, they had a thing for each other. Well, Naruto had a thing for Sakura. I don't think it was reciprocal, but the female that really wanted the guy, which is Hinata, really wanting Naruto, that ended up being the case. And there is just too much similarities between Sumire and Boruto. On the other side, Kawaki and Sada, that relationship is just way more interesting than a Boruto and Sada relationship. In my personal opinion, that right there would just be super duper boring, except for of course the kid having both the Byakugan potentially and also the Sharingan potentially. That right there is interesting. But regardless, this episode as a whole was definitely a very good episode. I really do want to know exactly what happens in the next episode. I'm trying not to get into a lot of stuff in this review mail because I know there's going to be a lot of things that I have to make specific videos about. For example, Naruto and Sasuke potentially getting another power up, the Otsutsuki God, Boruto being 80% chakra, things like that. So I want to make full dedicated videos about those specific things. But let me know what you guys think about this episode in the comment section below. But it's been your boy Baara B, and we out.
It's a knife.